Part 1. The Effortless Conquest. The stars moved past the window as Commander Talvek stood on the bridge of his warship. His green-scaled hands rested on the control panel. Below him, a blue planet grew larger. Earth. The humans called it home. Soon it would belong to the Velkari Empire. Talvek smiled. His intelligence reports were clear. The humans were weak. They used chemical weapons that exploded. Their ships could barely leave their atmosphere. They had no shields, no plasma guns, no real technology at all. This would be easy. The fleet arrived at dawn. 50 massive warships appeared in Earth's sky. They hung there like dark clouds. The humans saw them on their primitive screens. They sent messages asking who the Velkari were. Talvek did not answer. There was nothing to say. The attack began without warning. Blue plasma bolts fell from the sky like rain. Human cities exploded. Their buildings turned to dust. Their military bases vanished in bright flashes. The humans tried to fight back. They sent their aircraft. They launched their missiles. Nothing worked. Talvek watched human fighters approach his ship. They were so slow, so fragile. His weapons officer did not even need to aim carefully. The plasma cannons fired. Every human aircraft exploded before they could attack. Their missiles hit the energy shields and did nothing. It was like insects attacking a mountain. The human armies gathered on the ground. Tanks, soldiers, artillery. They looked impressive to other humans, perhaps. To Talvek, they looked like children with toys. One strike from orbit turned entire armies into smoking craters. The humans kept trying. They kept fighting. They died in thousands, then millions. 3 days passed. Talvek's forces landed in every major city on Earth. The human governments tried to surrender, but Talvek had no interest in deals. The humans would obey or die. It was simple. His soldiers walked through human streets with their weapons ready. Any resistance was crushed immediately. Talvek chose the human city called Sol for his headquarters. It was large and mostly intact. His soldiers cleared out the humans and set up equipment. Within hours, the building was a proper Velkari command center. Screens showed every part of Earth. Maps displayed human population centers. Everything was under control. He assigned his officers to different regions. Hyun would manage Asia. The officer was young but efficient. Jiwon took Europe. She was experienced and did not tolerate mistakes. Do-yoon got the Americas. He was thorough and reported everything. Minho handled resource extraction. The humans had useful metals and minerals. The Empire would take them. The humans were moved into containment zones. Large areas surrounded by fences and guards. They shuffled inside with blank faces. Some cried. Some stared at nothing. Most simply walked where they were told. They looked broken, defeated, exactly as they should be. Talvek sent his report to the Empire. Earth was conquered. The humans were no threat. Their weapons were useless. Their armies were destroyed. Their leaders were captured or dead. He recommended immediate colonization. Earth would make an excellent farming world. The humans could be used as labor. The first weeks were smooth. The humans did what they were told. They worked when ordered. They went to their containment zones quietly. There were no riots, no rebellions, nothing but acceptance. Talvek felt satisfied. This was how a conquest should go. He needed human translators to communicate with the prisoners. One was brought to him. A young man named Sunwoo. The human looked thin and tired like all of them. But his eyes were different. Not broken, not afraid, just watching. Always watching. Sunwoo translated orders efficiently. He spoke both human languages and learned Velkari quickly. Talvek found him useful. The human stood in the command center during meetings. He explained human customs when needed. He answered questions about Earth's resources. He was cooperative, perhaps too cooperative. One day Talvek asked him a question. Why do your people not fight back more? You surrendered so easily. Sunwoo looked at him for a long moment. "We are weak, Commander. You proved that. What point is there in fighting?" The answer made sense. Still, something in Sunwoo's eyes bothered Talvek. It was not fear. It was not despair. It was something else, something that made him uncomfortable. But he dismissed the feeling. The human was beaten. They all were. Months passed. The occupation continued. Velkari engineers began extracting minerals. Scientists studied Earth's plants and animals. Soldiers patrolled the streets. Everything went according to plan. The Empire was pleased. Talvek received commendations. His career was advancing nicely. But small things started happening. Supply trucks disappeared in remote areas. Communication stations went silent. Soldiers were found dead with bullet wounds. Old human weapons. Primitive things. Talvek ordered increased patrols. These were just scattered survivors. Desperate humans with no hope. They would be hunted down and eliminated. Hyun reported more incidents. Convoys attacked in mountains, equipment sabotaged, guards killed in the night. The attacks were coordinated, planned. The humans were learning Velkari patrol patterns. They were adapting. Jiwon interrogated captured fighters. One woman refused to speak. They threatened her. She smiled. "You should have killed us all immediately," she said before execution. "Now you have given them time." Talvek read the report. Given who time? There was no one left to give time to. Earth's military was destroyed. Their ships were wreckage. Their governments were gone. Who did the human mean? He stood at his window looking at the Seoul skyline. Smoke rose from distant fires. Human resistance, probably. They would be dealt with. Everything was under control. But that feeling returned. The same one he got from Sunwoo's eyes. Something was wrong. Something he was not seeing. Talvek pushed the thought away. Earth was conquered. The humans were defeated. Nothing could change that now. His fleet controlled the skies. His armies controlled the ground. The Velkari Empire was victorious. He had no idea how wrong he was. Part 2. The whispers begin. 3 months had passed since the invasion. Talvek reviewed reports in his command center. The numbers should have made him happy. Resources were being extracted on schedule. Human workers were productive. The occupation was profitable. But the other numbers bothered him. Missing soldiers, 47. Lost vehicles, 12. Destroyed outposts, 8. Every week the numbers grew. These were not accidents. This was organized resistance. The humans were supposed to be broken. They were supposed to accept defeat. Instead, they were fighting back. Hyun entered the command room looking frustrated. His scales had lost their usual bright color. He threw a data pad on the table. Another convoy attacked. 10 soldiers dead. The transport was carrying food supplies to the northern base. Talvek picked up the data pad. How did they know the route? They are watching us, Commander. Learning our patterns. Using their old weapons. Hiding in forests and mountains where our scanners have difficulty. Hyun sat down heavily. It is annoying, but manageable. We just need more patrols. But Talvek was not sure it was manageable. The attacks were becoming more sophisticated. Last week, humans had used an electromagnetic pulse to disable a sensor station. That required technical knowledge. These were not random survivors. This was organized military action. Jiwon called from Europe. Her face on the screen looked grim. Commander, we have a problem. We captured a resistance cell in what was called Paris. During interrogation, one woman said something strange. She said we gave them time. When I asked what she meant, she said those who got away are coming back. Got away where? Talvek demanded. She died before telling us. But she seemed confident, almost happy to die, like she knew something we did not. Jiwon paused. What if there were human ships that escaped before we secured the system? Talvek considered this. His fleet had destroyed all ships in Earth orbit and the nearby space. But what about ships that were farther out? The intelligence report said humans had only been to their moon. But those reports were from the Empire's database. What if they were wrong? Doyen reported similar incidents from the Americas. Coordinated attacks, sabotage, humans who fought with discipline and training. These are not civilians, Commander. These are soldiers. Trained soldiers who were somehow not caught in our initial sweep. Minho's intelligence division worked day and night analyzing patterns. Where did the weapons come from? How did the resistance communicate? What was their objective? The answers were troubling. The weapons were old human military equipment hidden before the invasion. The communication was through underground networks built in the first weeks of occupation. The objective seemed to be causing maximum disruption while keeping Velkari forces spread thin. They are preparing for something, Minho said during a briefing. But what? The answer came 1 week later. Minho's technicians intercepted a signal from beyond the asteroid belt. It was encrypted but deliberately simple. Like the humans wanted the Velkari to decode it. When they broke the encryption, the message made Talvek's blood run cold. Earth has fallen. Request immediate extraction of ARC protocol survivors. Coordinates attached. Warning, Velkari occupation force estimated at 50,000. Recommend overwhelming response. The message was addressed to something called Sole Defense Flotilla, Outer Perimeter. Talvek stared at the message. Flotilla, Defense, Outer Perimeter. These words implied military organization, ships, forces that were not on Earth during the invasion, forces that were somewhere else. He called an emergency meeting. Hyun, Jiwon, Doyun, and Minho gathered in the war room. Sunwoo stood near the door as always. The human translator's face showed nothing. This could be a trick, Doyun said hopefully. Psychological warfare, making us think they have reinforcements when they do not. The signal came from beyond our sensor range, Minho countered. It was sent to specific coordinates in deep space. Why send a fake message where we might not even intercept it? Jiwon looked at the star maps. Our intelligence said humans only went to their moon, that they were a single-planet species. But what if that was wrong? What if they had colonies we did not know about? Talvek felt something he had not felt in years. Doubt. Fear. He looked at Sunwoo. The human met his gaze calmly. Too calmly. You, Talvek said. You know something. Where were your military ships during the invasion? Sunwoo was quiet for a moment. The room waited. Finally he spoke. Where they always are, Commander. Out there. He gestured vaguely upward. Beyond your sensor range, beyond where you looked. You assumed we were weak because Earth seemed defenseless. You never considered that was intentional. Intentional? Hyun stood up. You are saying your people deliberately made Earth look weak? We have been a space-faring species for longer than you think. We have colonies, shipyards, fleets. But we learned something important when we first met other species. The galaxy is not kind to newcomers, so we hid our strength. We made Earth look isolated and primitive, and we waited to see who would reveal themselves as threats. Talvek felt ice in his veins. You used your own planet as bait. Earth was always going to be a target, Sunwoo said simply. Better to control when and how that happened. Better to know who our enemies were. Better to have our real strength far away where it could not be destroyed in a surprise attack. Doyen pointed his weapon at Sunwoo. You are lying. If you had fleets, they would have defended Earth. No, Sunwoo replied calmly. We evacuated who we could. We implemented the ARC protocol, and we waited for the flotilla to return. It takes 3 months to travel from the outer colonies to Earth. 3 months for our forces to gather and make the journey home. He paused. It has been 3 months, Commander. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at the date. Exactly 3 months since the invasion began. Talvek's hands shook. He accessed the long-range sensors. Nothing showed. Empty space. But that meant nothing. Human ships could be in FTL. They could emerge at any moment. "Even if you have ships," Talvek said, trying to sound confident, "we control Earth. We have millions of human prisoners. If your forces attack, we will kill them all." Sunwoo's expression did not change. "Admiral Sora is a practical woman, Commander. She lost 700 million when you invaded. Do you think a few million more will stop her from destroying your forces? Humans understand sacrifice. We understand that sometimes you lose the battle to win the war." "Who is Admiral Sora?" Jiwan asked. "The commander of the Third Fleet, the sole defense flotilla. She has spent 20 years fighting pirates and hostile species. She does not negotiate. She does not compromise. She wins." Sunwoo looked at each officer. "And right now she is very angry." Talvek ordered increased surveillance of all space around Earth. Sensors were set to maximum range. Every ship in the fleet was put on alert. They waited. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Maybe the human was lying. Maybe this was psychological warfare after all. Then the sensors screamed warnings across every Velkari facility simultaneously. Doyen was monitoring the tactical display. His face went pale. "Commander, we have incoming contacts. Multiple signatures emerging from FTL." "How many?" Talvek ran to the display. "I cannot get an accurate count. At least 200. No, 300. Commander, they are still coming." Talvek watched in horror as the display filled with red markers. Human ships, hundreds of them. Massive vessels that made his flagship look small. Carriers, destroyers, dreadnoughts. A fleet that should not exist. A fleet that proved everything he knew about humanity was wrong. Sunwoo walked to the window. He looked up at the sky where stars were disappearing behind newly arrived ships. "I told you, Commander. You gave them time. Now they are here. And they are not happy." Part 3. The flotilla emerges. The command center erupted in chaos. Alarms blared from every console. Officers shouted reports over each other. The tactical display showed so many red markers that it looked like a sea of blood surrounding Earth. Talvek stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. "Contact count now at 400, Doyen reported, his voice shaking. "They are still emerging from FTL. Signatures indicate dreadnought-class vessels, multiple carriers, destroyer screens forming in attack formation." Hyun grabbed the sensor data with trembling hands. "This is impossible. Our intelligence said humans had no deep space fleet, no colonies. How do they have this many ships?" Jiwan was already running combat calculations. Her face showed what they all knew. The numbers were terrible. The Velkari fleet had 50 warships. The humans had brought over 600 and counting. It was not a battle. It was an execution. The human ships moved with precision that spoke of years of training. They spread out in perfect formation. Each ship knew exactly where to go. The carriers began launching fighter craft. Thousands of small ships poured out like angry insects. They formed screening patterns, cutting off any escape routes. Talvek watched a Velkari destroyer try to flee. It powered up its engines and made a run for open space. A human destroyer moved to intercept. The Velkari ship fired first. Bright plasma bolts streaked across the darkness. Direct hits. The human ship's shields absorbed the attack without even flickering. The shields glowed blue for a moment, then returned to normal. The human destroyer did not slow down. It fired back. The Velkari destroyer was there one moment. The next moment it was debris, 7 seconds from first hit to complete destruction. The human weapons were not plasma. They were something else, something much more powerful. "What kind of weapons are those?" Hyun whispered. Minho was accessing the sensor data. "Rail guns. Kinetic weapons accelerated to incredible speeds, and energy weapons that are far beyond our technology. Their shields are layered, multiple defensive systems. We cannot penetrate them." A transmission cut through all frequencies. Every screen in the command center showed the same image. A human woman in a dark blue uniform. She stood on a bridge that was clearly a warship. Behind her, crew members worked at their stations with calm efficiency. Her face was hard. Her eyes were cold. "Velkari forces occupying Earth," she said. Her voice was clear and precise. "I am Admiral Sora of the Terran Union Defense Forces. You have invaded sovereign human territory. You have killed approximately 700 million civilians. You have enslaved survivors in violation of the Galactic Convention of Sapient Rights." Talvek found his voice. "The Galactic Convention? Humanity is not part of the galactic community. Our records show you are an isolated species, unknown to the convention." Admiral Sora's expression did not change. "Your records are 50 years out of date, Commander. We have been members of the convention for 3 decades. We have explored and colonized 17 systems. We have established diplomatic relations with 47 species. And we have built the 3rd largest military fleet in known space." The room fell silent. 17 systems, 47 species, 3rd largest fleet. Every word was a hammer blow to everything they thought they knew. The humans had been playing a game for decades, and the Velkari had walked right into their trap. "You see, Commander," Sora continued, "humanity learned an important lesson when we first left Earth. The galaxy is dangerous. New species are viewed as prey, as targets. So we made a choice. Earth would remain visible, apparently weak, apparently isolated, but our real civilization would grow in the shadows. Out there." She gestured off-screen, "where no one was looking." Doyen stared at the display showing the human fleet. This was all planned. The appearance of weakness, everything. "Not planned," Sora said. "Prepared. We did not want to be invaded, but we knew it would happen eventually. Someone would see Earth and think it was an easy target, so we prepared overwhelming force. And we waited. Every species that invades Earth reveals themselves as a threat, and every species that invades Earth faces the full might of the Terran Union." Talvek's mind raced. 50 years of deception, 3 decades of secret expansion, a trap that used their own planet as bait. The humans had sacrificed 700 million of their own people to maintain the illusion. What kind of species did that? "Why tell us this now?" Jiwan asked. "Why explain your strategy?" "Because you already lost," Sora replied simply. "Because every species needs to understand what happens when you attack Earth. We will not hide anymore. From this day forward, the galaxy will know that humanity is not weak, that Earth is not defenseless, that anyone who harms our people will face absolute destruction." The screen split. Half showed Admiral Sora. The other half showed the human fleet. Weapons arrays were coming online across hundreds of ships, railgun batteries, missile pods by the thousands, energy weapons that made Velkari plasma cannons look like toys. The amount of firepower pointed at Earth was staggering. "You have 1 hour," Sora said. "Release all human prisoners. Power down your weapons. Prepare to surrender your forces. Comply with these terms, and you will be treated according to the Galactic Convention. You will be given fair trials. Your rights will be protected." She paused. The silence was heavy. "Resist, and we will show you why humanity's military doctrine is titled, 'When humanity goes to war, we go to win.' We will destroy every ship you have. We will kill every soldier who fights back. We will turn your occupation into a graveyard, and then we will take your surviving officers to The Hague and make sure the galaxy sees what happens to those who commit genocide against humans." The transmission ended. The command center was silent, except for the quiet beeping of sensors. Everyone looked at Talvek. He was the commander. The decision was his. But what decision was there to make? They were outnumbered 12-1. Their weapons were useless, their shields were weak, running was impossible, fighting was suicide. Hyun broke the silence. "We could use the prisoners as hostages. Threaten to kill them if the humans attack." Did you see her face? Minho said quietly. She already lost 700 million. She will sacrifice more to destroy us. Humans are not like us. They do not surrender because of threats. They just get more angry. Jiwon was looking at casualty estimates. If we fight, we lose everything. If we surrender, at least some of us survive. The choice is obvious. Doyun shook his head. The Empire will call us cowards. We will be dishonored. Our families will suffer shame. Better shame than death, Hyun replied. Better dishonor than extinction. Talvek looked at Sunwoo. The human translator stood calmly near the door. You knew this would happen. From the first day. You knew your people would come back. I hoped they would, Sunwoo said. I believed they would, but I was not certain. If the flotilla had been destroyed in some distant battle, Earth might have stayed conquered. But they were not destroyed. They came home. And now you face the consequences of your actions. The countdown timer showed 45 minutes remaining. Talvek thought about his options. He could order his fleet to fight. They would die gloriously. The Empire would sing songs about their brave last stand. But they would still die. Every single one of them. Or he could surrender. Face trial. Face shame. But live. His crew would live. Maybe they could learn from this. Maybe they could prevent future disasters by sharing what they learned. He thought about the 700 million humans who died in the invasion. The cities he destroyed. The families he tore apart. The civilization he tried to enslave. What gave him the right? Because his weapons were better? Because his ships were faster? Those advantages meant nothing now. The timer showed 30 minutes. Talvek made his decision. Part 4. The siege turns. The timer showed 25 minutes. Talvek reached for the communication console. His hand shook. This was the hardest thing he had ever done. Harder than any battle. Harder than any decision. He was about to surrender an entire invasion force without fighting. History would judge him. His people would judge him. But at least some of them would survive. Then the ground sensor started screaming. New contacts, a technician shouted. Atmospheric entry, hundreds of them, all over the planet. Talvek looked at the display. Drop pods, thousands of them. Human Marines were landing. They were not waiting for the surrender deadline. They were already taking action, taking back their planet. All units, defensive positions, Hyun ordered into his comm. Prepare for ground assault. But the human forces were not attacking blindly. They knew exactly where to strike. Drop pods landed directly on containment zones where prisoners were held. They landed at weapons depots, at communication stations, at command centers. Whoever planned this had perfect intelligence. A squad of human Marines breached the outer perimeter of the Seoul Command Center. Talvek watched them on security cameras. They wore powered armor that made them look twice their normal size. Heavy weapons were mounted on their shoulders. Their movements were smooth and coordinated. Professional soldiers, not desperate survivors. They are not trying to destroy us, Ji-won observed. They are trying to free prisoners and secure strategic points. This is a rescue operation, not an extermination. Do-yoon was coordinating defenses. Velkari forces are engaging in multiple locations, but the humans have superior equipment. Our plasma weapons barely damage their armor. Their weapons cut through our defenses like paper. On one screen, Talvek watched a human marine unit assault a detention facility. The Velkari guards opened fire. Plasma bolts hit the Marines' armor and dissipated. The Marines advanced without slowing. They used weapons that fired metal projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Each shot punched through Velkari shields and armor. The guards fell in seconds. But the Marines did not kill unnecessarily. When Velkari soldiers dropped their weapons and raised their hands, the Marines secured them and moved on. They were following rules of war. They were being professional. That somehow made it worse. The humans were not monsters. They were not savages. They were disciplined military forces doing their job. One Marine's armor had a name written in human script: Sergeant Junho. He led his squad through the detention center with precision. They knew the layout perfectly. They moved to the prisoner cells and began releasing humans. The freed prisoners cried. They hugged the Marines. They thanked them in broken voices. Talvek felt something twist in his chest. Those prisoners had been under his control, his responsibility, and he had treated them like animals, like resources, like things. Now he watched them reunite with their defenders and saw the joy on their faces, the relief, the hope. "Commander, we have lost contact with 15 ground facilities," Minho reported. "Human forces have secured them. Prisoners are being evacuated. Our soldiers are either dead or captured." The timer showed 10 minutes. The orbital fleet was still waiting, still ready to strike. But the ground forces were already moving, coordinated, efficient, overwhelming. A new transmission came through. Not Admiral Sora this time. A man in heavy armor. His helmet was off, showing a scarred face. His name tag read, Captain Inwu. "Velkari Ground Forces, this is Captain Inwu, 3rd Marine Division. We are aware that some of your units have surrendered peacefully. These units are being treated well according to convention rules. Other units continue fighting. Those units are being eliminated. Choose wisely in the next few minutes. Surrender or die." The transmission cut. Simple, direct. No threats, no speeches, just a clear choice. Talvek's personal comm buzzed. It was Hyun. "Commander, my forces in Beijing are surrounded. The humans have us boxed in. They are offering terms. I recommend we accept." Ji-won called next. "Paris command has fallen. I am evacuating to a secondary position, but the humans are everywhere. They are in the streets, in the buildings. They have local resistance helping them. We cannot hold." Doyun's voice was strained. "I have lost contact with 70% of my units in the Americas. The ones I can reach are requesting permission to surrender. What are my orders?" The timer showed 5 minutes. Talvek looked around the command center. His staff watched him, waiting for orders, waiting for leadership. But what could he tell them? To fight? Against an enemy that outnumbered them 12-1 in space and was systematically dismantling their ground forces? Sunwoo stepped forward. "Commander, you know how this ends. You knew from the moment the flotilla arrived. Every minute you delay is another minute Velkari soldiers die for nothing. Another minute human prisoners remain in danger. End this." "You want me to surrender my entire force," Talvek said bitterly. "To admit complete defeat." "I want you to save lives," Sunwoo replied. "Both Velkari and human. You made terrible choices, Commander. You invaded. You killed. You destroyed. Those crimes will be judged. But right now, right here, you can make one good choice. You can stop the killing." Talvek looked at the screens, at the human fleet waiting in orbit, at the ground forces securing position after position, at his own forces being cut down or surrendering, at the freed prisoners crying with relief at the destruction he had caused. The timer showed 2 minutes. He had been so confident 3 months ago. Earth was weak. Humanity was primitive. The invasion would be easy. Glory and advancement awaited. But he had been wrong about everything. The humans were not weak. They were patient. They were smart. They had planned for this. And now they were taking back what was theirs with overwhelming force. Talvek made his choice. He opened a channel to Admiral Sora, to all Velkari forces, to every human listening. His voice was steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Admiral Sora, this is Commander Talvek of the Velkari Occupation Force. I hereby surrender. All Velkari forces under my command are ordered to lay down weapons immediately. We will power down our ships. We will release all prisoners. We will submit to your authority under the terms of the Galactic Convention." The command center was silent. Then one by one, His officers began sending stand-down orders to their units. Weapons powered down. Ships deactivated their systems. Ground forces dropped their plasma rifles and raised their hands. Admiral Sora's face appeared on screen. Her expression was hard, but not cruel. Received, Commander. Your forces will be secured and processed. You and your senior staff will be taken into custody and transferred to The Hague for trial. Any Velkari soldier who cooperates will be treated according to convention standards. Any who resist will be eliminated. Understood, Talvek said quietly. One more thing, Commander. Sora's eyes bored into him. What you felt just now, that fear, that helplessness, that desperation as you realized you could not win. Remember it, because that is what 700 million humans felt when your ships appeared in our sky. That is what they felt as your weapons destroyed their cities. That is what they felt as you herded them into camps. Remember that feeling. It will be important during your trial. The transmission ended. Within minutes, human Marines entered the command center. They moved efficiently, securing weapons, restraining officers. Sergeant Junho approached Talvek directly. The Marine was professional but firm. Commander Talvek, you are under arrest for war crimes, invasion of sovereign territory, and mass murder. Put your hands behind your back. Talvek complied. The restraints clicked into place, cold metal against his scales. He looked at Sunwoo one last time. The human translator nodded once, not in friendship, not in respect, just acknowledgement. The Marines led Talvek outside. The sky was full of human ships. The streets were full of human soldiers. And for the first time since the invasion began, he saw humans walking freely. No longer prisoners, no longer slaves. Citizens of Earth. Home. The fear he felt in that moment would never leave him. Part 5. Aftermath and Understanding. The prisoner transport ship was nothing like Talvek's flagship. It was small and functional, no luxury, no comfort, just basic cells and monitoring systems. He shared the transport with his senior officers. Hyun sat quietly in one corner. Jiwon stared at nothing. Doyun had not spoken since the surrender. Minho kept reviewing files on a datapad, trying to understand where their intelligence went wrong. They traveled for 2 weeks before reaching Earth's capital region. During that time, Talvek learned more about humanity from the guards than he had during the entire occupation. The guards were professional, but willing to talk. One was named Corporal Unji. "How many ships does your flotilla actually have?" Talvek asked her one day. "The Third Fleet has 623 vessels," she replied. "That is just one fleet. We have 7 fleets total, plus system defense forces for each colony. If you had held Earth longer, all 7 fleets would have come. Every ship, every Marine, every asset we possess." Talvek felt sick. "That would leave your colonies defenseless." Yunji's expression was hard. "When someone invades Earth, we bring everything home. Colonies can be rebuilt. Earth only falls once. That is our doctrine. That is our promise." The transport landed at a facility near what humans called The Hague, the International Criminal Court. Talvek and the other officers were processed through security. Fingerprints, DNA samples, photographs, medical examinations, everything documented, everything recorded. The humans were thorough. A human lawyer was assigned to Talvek. Her name was Advocate Myung. She was young but competent. She reviewed his case file during their first meeting. "Commander, you are being charged with war crimes, mass murder, and crimes against sapient life. The prosecution has significant evidence: satellite footage of the initial bombardment, casualty reports, survivor testimonies. Your own tactical logs." She looked at him directly. "But you did surrender quickly once you realized the situation. That prevented additional casualties. I can argue for reduced sentencing based on that." "Will it matter?" Talvek asked. I killed 700 million humans. The court will consider all factors, your actions, your choices, your intent. The Galactic Convention allows for proportional justice. You will not face execution. That is not permitted, but you will face significant prison time. She paused. The goal is not revenge, Commander. It is justice. It is ensuring this never happens again. The trial began 3 months after the surrender. The courtroom was massive. Representatives from 40 different species attended. The Velkari Empire sent diplomats who formally disavowed Talvek's actions. They paid reparations to Earth. They promised it would never happen again. They threw Talvek and his officers to the humans to save face. Talvek sat in the defendant's box as evidence was presented. Videos of cities being destroyed. Audio recordings of his orders. Lists of casualties so long they took an hour to read. Survivor testimonies that made him want to disappear. One survivor was a woman named Bora, the same one Ji-won had interrogated before execution. Except she had not died. She survived and was freed during the invasion. She testified about the labor camps, about watching her family die, about 3 months of suffering under Velkari occupation. I told your officer that you should have killed us all immediately, Bora said, looking directly at Talvek. I meant it. You gave us time to resist, time to prepare. Time for our fleet to come home. You were so confident that we were beaten, but humans do not stay beaten. We adapt, we survive, we fight back, always. The prosecution presented evidence of other invasions, 7 before the Velkari, all defeated, all documented. Earth had been invaded 8 times in 70 years. 8 times, attackers thought the planet was easy prey. 8 times, the human fleet had returned to destroy the invaders. Earth is not weak, the prosecutor said. Earth is a test. Humanity uses their homeworld to identify hostile species, to separate those who respect sovereign rights from those who see weakness and attack. Commander Talvek and his forces failed that test, and now they face justice. Advocate Myung did her best. She argued that Talvek was following orders from the Empire, that his intelligence was faulty, that he surrendered quickly to prevent further bloodshed, that he deserved consideration for choosing peace over fighting to the death. The judges deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, Chief Judge Han read the verdict. He was an older human with gray hair and tired eyes. Commander Talvek, this court finds you guilty of war crimes, mass murder, and crimes against sapient life. You ordered the destruction of cities. You enslaved civilians. You killed hundreds of millions. These actions cannot be excused by faulty intelligence or following orders. You had choices. You made the wrong ones. Talvek stood as the judge continued. However, this court also recognizes that you ultimately chose surrender over continued conflict. Your decision saved lives on both sides. While this does not erase your crimes, it shows capacity for growth, for change, for learning. The judge paused. You are sentenced to 40 years imprisonment in a human correctional facility designed for alien prisoners. Possibility of parole after 20 years, conditional on good behavior and demonstrated understanding of your crimes. The gavel struck. The trial was over. Talvek was led away to begin his sentence. In the gallery, he saw Sunwoo sitting quietly, the human translator who had warned him, who had told him the truth, who had known from the beginning how this would end. Sunwoo nodded once, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. The years passed slowly in prison. Talvek had a cell to himself, a bed, a desk, a window showing Earth's sky. He was given access to the prison library. He began reading about humans, their history, their wars, their philosophy. He learned that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years, wars that killed millions of their own kind. They knew violence intimately. They understood warfare in ways the Velkari never had. They had refined it, perfected it. And then they decided to prepare overwhelming force to ensure peace. Si vis pacem para bellum, he read in an old human text. If you want peace, prepare for war. A human prisoner named De Hyun sometimes sat with him in the library. The human was serving time for smuggling. He was friendly enough despite everything. "Why do you read so much about us?" De Hyun asked one day. "I am trying to understand," Talvek replied. "We thought you were weak. We thought Earth was defenseless. We never considered that was intentional." Daehyun nodded. "My grandfather fought in the unification wars, humans fighting humans, terrible times. He used to say something. Never mistake patience for weakness. Never mistake preparation for fear. Earth stayed visible for 70 years while we built our real civilization elsewhere. How many species came to conquer us?" 8, including mine. 8. And all 8 learned the same lesson. Earth might look weak, but humanity is not. We just choose where to show our strength. Dae-Yun smiled sadly. "You could have been friends with us, partners, allies. Instead, you chose to be conquerors. And now, you know the price." 20 years passed. Talvek attended classes on galactic law. He studied the convention. He taught other prisoners about the importance of respecting sovereign rights. He wrote papers on the dangers of assuming strength meant right. He changed, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. The parole hearing arrived. Talvek sat before a review board. Admiral Sora was there, now retired and gray-haired. She served as an advisor to the Galactic Convention. "Commander Talvek," she said, "you have served 20 years. Your prison record is exemplary. You have educated yourself and others. You seem to genuinely understand what you did wrong. Why should we grant parole?" Talvek chose his words carefully. "Because I can do more good outside than inside. I can return to the Velkari Empire as a convention observer. I can make sure my people understand what I learned. I can prevent future disasters by sharing my experience. I cannot undo the past. But I can try to improve the future." Sora studied him for a long moment. "The board has reviewed your case. We are granting parole with conditions. You will return to the Velkari Empire as a convention observer. You will ensure your government adheres to galactic law. You will report to this board annually. Can you accept that responsibility?" "I can," Talvek said. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure no other Velkari commander makes my mistakes." The day of his release, Talvek stood outside the prison looking at Earth's sky. The planet had recovered, cities were rebuilt, populations had grown back. The scars were healing, but in orbit, he could see the defense stations, the guardian posts, the watching eyes that never slept. A transport waited to take him home, to the Velkari Empire, to his new role as observer. As a living reminder of what happens when you underestimate humanity, as proof that the galaxy had rules and those rules had teeth. As the transport lifted off, Talvek looked down at Earth one last time, the blue marble hanging in the void, still apparently vulnerable, still seemingly defenseless. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Earth was not weak. Earth was a test, and anyone who failed that test would face the full might of humanity's hidden fleets. 8 species had learned that lesson through conquest and defeat. How many more would need to learn? How many more would see Earth and think easy prey before realizing their mistake? Talvek hoped none. But if they came, if other invaders appeared in Earth's sky, he knew what would happen. The flotillas would return, the fleets would gather, and humanity would once again prove that patience is not weakness, that preparation is not fear, and that those who mistake kindness for vulnerability pay a heavy price. Earth had been invaded 8 times. Earth had never fallen. And as long as humans explored the stars, building their civilization in the shadows while keeping their home world visible, that would never change. The fear Talvek felt that day when the flotilla emerged would stay with him forever. A reminder. A lesson. a warning he would carry to his people and to the galaxy beyond. Never underestimate humanity, never mistake their patience for weakness, and never, ever invade Earth.